David and Henderson.
What's the difference even if they are for profit? Because NAPGS
It's
is
just
for
that they have
profit.
held themselves out as a non-profit organization.
They never did in the beginning, ever. They never,
If
I knew that.
Any
they weren't
people
for
that we
profit.
polled, the same. Same happened to me with ODGA. I go back to the beginning of ODGA, when ODGA wasn't registered. ODGA did not become registered until 1993. I'll check the records. And it's not even registered under the Ontario Dog Groomers
No, it's
Association.
registered on the Dog Groomers Association in Ontario.
Yeah.
In the paperwork it says to be known as.
Yeah, to be known as
But
Ontario Dog
it
Groomers
doesn't show
Association.
on,
In the Constitution, that's how
it
it's written
doesn't,
up.
yeah, but it's not on your status report. So you gotta change it up on your status report.
Mm-hmm.
Because your status report lists your board directors back to 2000.
That was probably when it was,
So
we were
anyways,
going
let's
to
get back
close-
to
Yeah, we we're gonna close
CP.
everything down.
So I go, okay, so let me take this one step farther. I rate Boda. One last question. Does a society number mean that they are non-profit? Statement coming back, no, it does not mean that they are non-profit.
It says right on there.
General from, I don't know, I don't know when that was printed off, but a society is a not-for-profit organization.
That's correct. You can form a society, but if you form a society along with an incorporated organization, one fraction is for-profit, one fraction is not-for-profit. And they've registered both. And they have the third company, which was never dissolved, and that's your sole proprietorship.
Mm-hmm.
So we went, well, so now we gotta throw them out, not because we didn't want them,
Well,
but
if you
because
want
their
them,
papers.
inform them.
If you
then
want
they
them
can make the
informed, they
changes.
would make the changes.
Right? They're going to make the changes. Right?
If they do, amazing. I don't
Right.
have time anymore.
But it's
If
just
they
a phone
know-
call or an email. Just
they
say, hey
know-
guys, we wanted you to be involved. Why don't you do
Yeah.
this? Right?
So at this point in time, they're not involved because they can only act in the province of British Columbia. That's the
Were
end
they
of the
ever
story.
asked to be involved?
We were going to ask all of you, but when your status reports came back less than stellar, legal counsel said, don't even go there. So I said, okay, we're here now. Oh, and that's not to beat up on these organizations. Truly, it's not. But there's another organization out there, Canadian Professional Groomers Association, 1995.
That was dissolved a long time ago. That was Diane Lonis and Jim Sparham.
That's right. So
It was dissolved a long time ago.
But their current business name still exists.
That could just
So
be
what
a
does that
government glitch.
Okay.
Oh, that's kind of dead. Diane's dead now, so
Yeah,
Right?
she was my original teacher.
she was my teacher as well.
Yeah, Diane was awesome. We're
Yeah.
gonna go way back, many, many, many years. Whoa. But anyway, so to put it bluntly, we're here now. We've got this act. We want to make certain that you understand what the act is going to do. NAPGS is a profit company. If the minister, in his good magic wand blessing, did come along and say, you're it, or they might say, oh, DGA is it, they might say, somebody else is it, they might say, we're gonna just put you into a brand new bracket and you have to form something brand new, because nobody's stellar in the group, so start it up from fresh. We don't have a choice in that. What we have choices in is deciding what we're going to put in the act. On the board, you'll see a full listing. If an existing business, if you have an existing business, you must register your business, and then as a groomer, you must register as a groomer. Now, why do we want the businesses registering? Just pull this up. It's pretty easy. You've been all around a long time. You wake up one morning and there's a brand new shop that's just opened up next to you. Bunch of yahoos are running it. You have no idea whether they're truly registered, not registered, or maybe they're grooming out of their home, whatever. What we want is those businesses to be registered with the Act so that we have the name of the owner or the corporation number, and we have the address, and that they have proper status in their location by the city and their bylaws. So that if they're grooming dogs, that they can groom dogs in that location. Then we want the pet groomer to come forward to say, I'm a pet groomer. You're bathing animals right now? You can step forward and say, I'm a pet groomer. We go, great, thank you very much. Can we have your name and address and your employer's name and address? Thank you very much, go away. We get that information in, and then we can start to identify who has 2 years of experience or longer, so that they automatically become licensed as a pet groomer. For the bathers, because we do know that the bathers come and go, and I can't count the number of bathers I've had in my lifetime. Some bathers want to move forward, and we are going to identify them as an intern, a bather intern. So if you wanted to be registered as an intern, you could register yourself as an intern. If, however, you've got a salon that's got 2, 3 bathers going, I'm going to pick on you, Eda, in your shop, and they just come and go, they don't have to be registered, except the employer has to have the records, so that if that bather does happen to pick up a pair of scissors and mean a dog, that we've got record that, well, you told us this was a bather. You didn't tell us he was a groomer. That's the reasoning there. If you have a salon or business that you have registered your business location in the city or province that rules over you. Pet bathers do not have to register, but the owner of the salon must keep the records. The pet bather will be encouraged to register as an intern. General workers may also apply and register as an intern. There are a number of salons out there that sell pet food, that sell supplies. They have people out front, the receptionists, that pick up the dog, get the directions on that animal to be groomed, and walk it to the back to where it's going to be groomed. They have their hands on that animal for that moment in time. We labored hard over this. Do we make them register? Don't we make them register? And we all basically came down to the same conclusion. These people are just basic workers. They will come and go in our lives. No. But if they want to be registered, they can be registered as an intern.
And may I add that they will fall under the responsibility of the licensed groomer. So you will in fact be
The owner of the
responsible.
business.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, the owner of the business, not the licensed groomer.
Okay.
Yeah, the business. The license for a pet groomer, we thought should be set somewhere around the 3-year period. Presently, hairdressers are paying around $400 a year, or every 3 years. Probably in that bracket, but we would try to get that down. Now, we are
They're
a
paying-
not-for-profit,
They're paying how much?
$400 every 3 years.
Oh, my hairdresser didn't say she paid that.
Maybe $350.
I'm sure that she told me she pays like $60 for her license every 3 years.
No, I can assure you she doesn't.
Oh, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to ask her that question
Yeah.
again, then, because I did ask her that
Yeah.
question.
So it's not a lot of money, but
That's a lot of money for a license. My husband's an electrician, they don't pay anywhere near that. That is a lot of money every 3 years to ask that of somebody. Yes.
So that money that your electrician or the hairdresser pays right now goes into the Ontario College of Trades, and they never see anything out of it.
So where would this go?
This would go into the governing body, pardon the word on that right
Mhm.
now, but the governing body, and it would be used for administration to keep everybody registered, and it would use it for education of the general public through websites, media, handouts, meetings, things of that nature. It's not to take away from clubs and associations. We would want to encourage clubs and associations over and above the governing body. But if we don't do it, if we don't form it amongst ourselves, then, yeah, the electricians come along and we fall into their category. But I think if you check with your husband as electrician, his annual fee is a little bit higher than $60.
Oh, I know his fees aren't that high. He pays union dues, that has nothing to do with his
Brother
license.
and dad.
But he pays his union dues, which can be, depending on what union you belong to, he belongs to a couple of them, so, but that's not his
Well, it's
license.
really easy, because all you have to do is go online and type in what are licensing fees with the Ontario College of Trades, and it'll give you the full download. So.
Yeah, I did think of
And when I asked my hairdresser what they paid, they said somewhere around $350, and I said, okay, $350 a year, and he said, no, every 3 years. And I said, yeah. And how do you know, or what do you get out of it? He said, well, every time I register, I get a gift basket back. That was his line. I'm like, okay. Hey, Gerald, how are you?
Good, how are you?
All right, so then it brings us back to each business must register, every pet groomer must register, and each would have a registration fee attached to it.
So would the
We
business
can't-
be responsible for registering the pet groomers within their organization?
No, that would be the individual pet groomer. And again, very much like, depending on how far you want to take this, under the Veterinarian Act, the registered technician under the Act has to carry their own liability insurance. They're not covered under the veterinarian shop liability coverage.
So each groomer will have to carry their own insurance?
Well, that's a question that we have to ask, you know.
Because right now I have like a lot of insurance on my store and it covers
And
everybody in there.
as a business owner, you might be relieved not to have to pay that, but then your worker may say, no, I've got to
I know.
pay.
My plaza says I have to pay it, so it's there.
But it's a question, right? It's got to go into the act. Okay. So then, everybody talked about personal achievement awards, like your CPG, IPG, all of the various awards that are out there. Everything from a CPR course to safety certificates. I mean, there are a number of organizations out there that are selling upgraded education in the field of animals. Some of them you may have signed up to, some of them you may not have signed up to. The Act would only consider those as personal achievements. Not to take away from them, you can still carry on and say that you're a CPG, but the only thing that the Act would do would be to enforce that these organizations had their proper business papers in order, so you, the buying public, that when you go to these organizations and enroll in their examinations, that you understand that your money is going to what you believe it's going to. And as,
Is IPG allowed to certify Canadians? 'Cause
no,
you had said something about that,
No.
so I just wanted to.
And why is that?
they're not registered here in Canada at all. They're a US organization. They can do business here in Canada. You can pay your fees here in Canada. If you want to write the exam here in Canada, there's nothing to say that you can't do that. But it doesn't give you the right to use the word licensed.
Yeah.
They
I
don't have
care.
license in their,
Yeah.
in their vocabulary anyways, so.
But they can do, if the public is prepared to spend that money and buy it and do that testing, by all means, go right ahead and spend your money on it. But the association, the governing body, will ensure that those organizations hold themselves out to the public, that being the grooming public, as being what they really are. If IPG is a profit center, they have to state it's a profit center, right? If
They do, yeah.
ODGA
Yeah, they
is
do.
not a profit center.
They were not, IPG was not for profit before, but now
But they
they
are.
changed because
They
they
are now.
trademarked their.
Yeah, they're trademarks, I know they are.
But they would have to show themselves for what they truly are, you know. And if an organization, somebody was talking about putting a new organization together, you can't advertise your new organization until all of your papers are in order.
So if these guys don't have, say IPG or whoever doesn't have their papers in order, what happens?
Then if you still want to pay your money to them, you go right ahead, but we would never, or the association would never advertise how great they are, or you should do it, or anything like that. But you could still do it,
Right,
yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of
Yeah.
like,
I mean, nothing
there's lots of
advertises
licensing that
they're
comes
great
from
and
the
all that
states
now.
for different things that people perform here in Canada.
Yeah, and those are
They come
personal
from the
achievement
States.
awards,
Right.
Yeah.
you know, and there is a whole government watchdog that watches these businesses that come into Ontario and right across
There's a lot of
Canada
medical stuff that
to
people go to the States to be
ensure,
trained
to
for too.
ensure that it's valid. I mean, let's face it, we're all innocent until we find out that what we paid for was useless.
Oh, well, I wouldn't consider any of those things useless.
No, as long as you got out of it what you wanted to get
That's
out of
right,
it.
but those are personal achievement. That's not like a mark, right? If you go to college, you go to university.
Yeah, but
and-
what is the idea of this for their testing? I mean, all I've heard lately is about safety, health, or,
It would
yeah,
basically
safety.
be much the same as the hairdressing world. We do not care about the hairstyle that goes on the dog.
right.
What we care about is your safe handling of the animal while it's in your care. But as far as whether you use
So
thinning
how would that
shears
testing
or
be done?
10-inch shears, it would be an examination that's done online, very much like the boater's exams.
So that's gonna make us professional, an online test where people can cheat and all that? That's gonna make us professionals?
Well, yes, they could cheat. There's always a body out there that will cheat. And
But I mean,
Yeah.
realistically, an
Yeah.
online test is now gonna make us come across more professional.
well,
That's not an achievement, you know what I mean? That, to me, if, like,
It's just a
Yeah.
Q&A test, it's not a visual.
No, it's not. It's an online test when it comes to safety of handling. You will have like a practical test that you will do, let's say a video, and you'll have to send that video, and we will have a look at what you're doing and whether you're doing it correctly. That's gonna be your online test. There's gonna be a question and answer as well. You will be then licensed as someone who has a specific level of education in the safe handling of your animal. Again, the licensing will include the safety of your salon. There's a
And
lot of salons
we
that are
also
not
have to
up
tell
to
you
level
that
of safety standards.
Yeah.
And therefore, you would have to bring in your safety certificate, your fire certificate, your certificate of municipality registrations, that kind of thing. Then you become licensed.
And we
that-
would follow much the same way as the other licensed trades are. A hairdresser never has to write practical for a haircut. Electrician doesn't do a practical for electrical work, it's all theory. And I would say that any minister who got a hold of this, and we started saying, well, you've got to do this and you've got to do that, and they've got to bring in dogs and all the rest of it, they'll just say, no, thank you. And they will base it purely on safety. I can assure you
but with
of that.
hairdressers, they have to do apprenticeship as well, right?
But
They
again-
have the option of going to school.
That's right.
Then they
But
have to do testing.
Right now, what we're doing is writing an act where you'll be grandfathered in because you do have 2 years' experience. The government has already said the new egg's gotta go to school.
So what about people that have been grooming for 2 years that have learned, say, through online courses or whatever? How is this gonna
It's the
upgrade our
same-
industry?
In
I
the
mean, there's
beginning,
many groomers, I'm sure you know, that have been
Oh,
grooming for
sure.
20, 30
Yeah.
years, and they shouldn't be able to operate, right?
everybody has their own skill level that they
I'm not talking
perceive.
about the haircut, for safety, handling, whatever,
Yeah.
right?
If they have 2 years of experience, they would be grandfathered in. That is all I can tell you.
I have a question.
If they have
So
less
do they
than 2
automatically
years-
get the wording that you're gonna put behind these names?
Yes.
It just, it automatically
Yes.
happens when you pay the fee. You
Yes.
So
still would
isn't
have to
that
pay the fee.
kind of misleading for the public if
I believe a lot of these individuals that you speak of probably don't have their business corporate papers.
You're probably
Oh.
not registered,
And-
yeah.
And therefore they'll
there's
never
some
come.
out there, yeah,
Okay,
for
so
sure.
I have a
But-
quick question, just because I've come in a little bit late,
Yes.
and you guys might have already covered this, but just out of curiosity, because, you know, obviously there are some schools, some are, very few are accredited, some are not. And a lot of people do groom, they didn't necessarily go to school. I apprentice all of my groomers, because half of the students I've got, they didn't practice safe techniques, and I can't trust it. I don't want them coming in and hurting animals, so I prefer to train them from the ground up. So if I wanted to continue doing that, how would I continue to train my own staff?
If we have our own private act, that's not an issue, we can write that in, not a problem. If we don't have our own private act, then it's gonna be left to the colleges right now that are teaching.
Which is scary.
Yeah, because I've seen some stuff, kids coming out of that school, and it's just crap what they're doing.
But I
They are
can't see that how any sort of an act, like the college act that you're talking about, the private college act or whatever, I can't see how they can tell me that I hired this girl from their college. She's doing something unsafe. I can't say to her in my own business, no, that's not the way we do it here. This is how we do it
You
here.
can say that, you can say that,
So you can train
But-
your employees to operate the way you want them to operate then.
yes.
There's nothing
No,
that,
oh,
nothing
there's
that says you
nothing.
can't do that.
No,
But you're
Well, that's
saying
what
that they
she's-
have to
that's
go
what
back
she was
to- They
asking.
have to go to school for 2 years to
Presently-
be a licensed groomer,
Presently, right now,
Yeah.
if you want to learn how to groom,
Yeah.
they have colleges set up.
Yeah.
Northern, Algonquin, others. And they're encouraging all of the students to go to those colleges to learn how to be a groomer or an assistant groomer.
But I
They're
don't want
coming-
those students, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And so they have to go to school at this point in time because a lot of the private schools can no longer teach. So they come out of that program, they believe that they're a groomer, they come to you, you say, you haven't quite made it yet, New Egg, so you're going to be paid minimum wage and this is how we're going to do it from this point on. Not a problem with that. Not a problem with that.
So they can still groom, they're supervised, but they can still groom, it's not like they have to be a licensed groomer.
Babysitting all over again.
But they still have to register. While she's in school and under the care of the college, they do not have to register as a pet groomer. But as soon as they leave that comfort zone and start to apply for work, then they must register as a pet groomer.
So if they
Now,
register
once
as,
they register,
yeah,
right, now they have to do an exam with the governing body through the Groomers Act. They can either postpone it and do it 2 years down the line.
so
work
it's just
with
not
you.
mandatory that they go to school.
No,
That's more my
the act
concern.
the act doesn't have anything to say about that.
Okay.
The Ministry of Education has that to say about it, not us.
Yeah.
So this is about registration and licensing.
Registration, licensing, and trying to get us to be a recognized practicing profession called groomers, so that with our own act, we can self-govern.
Mhm.
Right now, they could put us with anybody they wanted to put us with.
Yeah.
I'm saying we're too good for that, and if we don't stand up today and get recognized with our own act, then they're gonna do it for us tomorrow.
Right.
Whether it be through the Veterinarians Act, where they throw us under there, or through the private career, or not private career, but the Ministry of Education, they could throw us in there, they could throw us into the trades, they could throw us to the wolves. All I'm saying is if we don't step up to the plate in the year 2012 and start to march forward, our industry is going to be left behind. And as much as you question today what's in the act, you'll have no right, no say in what happens down the road,
If the government does it.
if the government does it. And if you're worried about fees and all of the rest of it, it's still coming down the pipeline. It's still going to be there. When you read the Ontario Colleges of Trades website, it states very clearly, they want to pull us all in. They don't say pet groomer, but their wording is so strongly, you know that every trade they want in, because they want us under their fingers. I say, No, I don't think so. And I'll fight until my dying breath to try and get our own bill through. It may not be a perfect act, but I think we're better off. If we end up in the hands of the veterinarians, what's to say that they say, nah, we don't want any of these private places. I don't have enough veterinarians on board to supervise you. Or because, like California, they have to be supervised.
One experience, I went and applied at Pet Vet, who has their own grooming shop. And when I went through the interview, their questions were, do I do anal cams? Do I do it internally or externally? Do I put eye drops on the dogs if it got soap in their eyes and stuff like that? And I said, well, I've never worked with another vet before. We've never had that clinic, so I would just use a polysporin on the eye, maybe that's some soap in the eye. I do external anal glands, unless the owner specifies it cannot have it done because it irritates them. And they right away, I was told that anything like that has to go upstairs to their clinic. They must do that, and the owner will be charged.
Yes.
If there's any little skin problem, I must stop all grooming, take it upstairs, so they will bill the owner.
That's correct.
And that is ridiculous, because the owner then now has no say.
The owner has no say, and you've been a practicing groomer for so many years. You know what is and isn't sort of a necessary evil at that point in time, but you would have no say in that. And what would happen is exactly that. They'll set up these little pet vet grooming shops.
Yeah, and this is
Or-
what maybe if we're in the veterinary
Well, California,
we may be trapped on,
Yeah.
we can't do this, we can't do that.
in California and in Texas right now, right, they're wanting to put it under the Veterinarian Act, and that the salons have to be supervised by a veterinarian. And these young vets are loving this because they're saying, so cool. So I get to hire a vet, put him under my payroll, and I send him to your shop, and you have to pay me for the supervision. You have to pay me for the supervision. And I have a number of really great friends down in California, and a number in Maine, and a couple in Texas. And they're all saying, it's coming down the pipeline, we just don't know when. And I said, well, what's happening with the various organizations? Are they not stepping up to the plate? And they're saying because they've never really been a political force, like you said with ODGA, they really don't have the talent or the know-how how to step forward to even try to beat this down.
Or the money.
And they don't have the money, you know, so.
Well, I don't even think the vets really want us to be in their act, like most
Oh,
of
I
the
know
time,
they
they
don't
don't wanna
want
do
us to
it.
be.
They don't, they're like, here,
At
take
this-
75%.
Yeah.
Believe me,
We don't
at
wanna
this
vote.
moment in time,
Yeah.
they may say they don't want you. But all it takes is them to get a couple of consultant
Yeah,
reports
please.
out.
One my
And the
one.
consultants say,
I'll take a
honey,
warm one
you
if
can make
if
a
you
lot of
want.
money
That's
doing
good.
this. And, you know, double think this.
Yeah.
And also right now.
Well, look at Mel and Michelle both tried to
That's
get
why they're
answers from the
stepping up and
the
saying no
vet.
more anal glands.
And they said,
I mean,
write it
I've
yourself
got
a bowl over
videotapes when I trained back in the 80s where I taught you how to
Because we don't
steal
have
your
time.
dog's teeth.
Yeah.
You know,
You can't do that.
Yeah, lots of
No,
girls
you
still do that.
can't do that, but every time the recession hits, something drops off the map.
So is there, are you getting
I
some
don't mind the
information that this
massage.
is something that might
Pizza
happen
in.
very soon if we're not organized? Like, what's the urgency?
I think it's gonna happen real soon, and it's gonna, if it's not in the planning stages right now, it may be in legislation soon. And that's not to scare you, but I know, even if all of you hate me, you don't think or you all think I'm a mad woman, I will take this bill forward, because I honestly believe it's gonna happen, and I don't want to be left behind. I want control of my business.
I think we all want it to happen, it's just a matter of it being, I think a lot of people have some anxiety around change.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it's really hard, it's scary because you don't know, is it the devil you know or the devil you don't know? And I think that's just more people's anxiety, but I think it's the best thing for all of us to have a regulated industry. We all really want this. So I think if this is, you know, if this is gonna be something good for us, I think in the end you'll find a lot of people supporting you, so.
I think there's a lot that are on the fence or.
Well, I think most,
or
I
not
don't mean
for
to
it.
interrupt, but I think the ones that are on the fence or against it right now, they don't know enough about it. And they felt
Yeah.
like they've been kept in the dark, and that's why they're not trusting.
How come you guys said originally that you would post the full act on, like have it publicly on your website or whatever, and then
Well,
that
we
changed?
were really hoping to have a convention on the 25th
Right.
of March.
Yes.
And with the heat that we both took on Facebook with nobody coming and saying, hey, shut it up, you know, stop, this is getting out of hand.
So it was over that? What about the rest of
Absolutely.
the province? I mean, not every, there's only 600 members on that group.
Yeah, and there's
Well,
a lot
once
of
you
people
can't
in the
hold down
province.
Once we've
Accountable.
What
The-
happened on
The shit hit the
Facebook.
fan when you said you limited it to 100 people. They're like, that's not fair, right? That's when it got nasty.
No,
No,
it
it
got
got
nasty
nasty as soon as the
long
board
before
was
that.
initiated.
So
I've got
the
a
Well,
list
about
of
lawyers
saying-
got a hold of
But
it.
about saying about the school and things like that. But I mean,
Saying
it's
that,
fact, right?
just bashing Lesley in general, personal attacks.
I
were-
think about the
were being
school,
made.
there was a comment made about not, I mean,
Yeah.
that was uncalled for, but
I can
I
handle
don't-
anything about my business. I know my business inside and out. I'm not afraid to put my business up. You can look at my records, you can come in, I will share anything about my trade
Right.
because I've done everything that I knowingly could do legitimately.
right.
Did I know about the Private Career Colleges Act? No, nobody else
No,
knew
nobody
about it
knew.
when it
Nobody
came
knew.
down. But I don't care about that, but when you start saying nasty things about me personally,
See, I don't
And-
recall seeing
oh,
that.
there was all about my
Oh,
house
yeah,
and.
there was
Oh,
a
see,
lot.
I
See,
didn't
I
see
never
any
saw
of
that
that.
either.
And
I
it
never
was
saw
not-
any of
It
that.
About
was
your
not
house
policed.
or,
It was not policed, so
well, where
I
are they
took
now?
it-
I can't even find that stuff now.
Yeah,
I
I,
think that it's a lesson well learned that a forum on Facebook is just absolutely ludicrous.
it's very.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Any
Sure.
kind of business.
yeah, but we're,
That's how it
Mine's
came
over,
out
though.
though.
Mine's
Yeah.
over.
yeah.
You've done an excellent job. And I
That's-
think
Yeah,
you're-
you said you've got all of them printed off from the very beginning?
I've got.
Because
I've got
I
a
never
separate-
ever read those ones. I would
Me
like to
neither.
read those ones. We never, neither Becky or I saw those ones, or we definitely would have said
Even now,
something for
when
a
there's
personal
been stuff
attack.
that's kind of, you know,
Okay,
touchy,
if
we
I
get
could
rid of it.
stop
Oh, yeah.
and just say, when that happened, we went to legal counsel took a look at it. They basically said, are you women crazy?
Yeah.
Sorry, I know there's a few
Even if
men
it
in
got
the
taken
trade.
off, some of the stuff was said anyway, and it
They-
was not nice.
well, they
Like, it was
basically
nasty.
said,
But
look, what are
Alex
you
too never
fighting?
shut his mouth, he was the nastiest piece
He's
of
not
work
on there.
ever.
Adam.
He
Whatever
shut
his
up.
name, Adam, yeah, it was the nastiest
He
piece
was the
of work I ever
nastiest.
had.
He
But
got
that
on
wasn't
about
directed
really
toward
nasty.
Leslie.
Yeah, there
Or-
was.
Yeah, it was, and all her
Yes.
Cambridge Pause students, he did it to me, and I
Yeah.
didn't appreciate it, he was a nasty piece
So
of
did
work.
Valerie Weston.
He needed to be wiped
So
off
did
that
Wendy
thing right from the
Davis.
beginning.
Oh,
Wendy
see, I
Davis
didn't
said.
see that
So
either.
you
What he
erased
said-
it?
She
What
must
you
be
erased
erased
it?
it.
You erased it?
A
But
bunch
he was
of
a nasty
nobodies,
piece
she
of
said.
work.
No, we
Cambridge
didn't
Pause are a
erase,
bunch
we
of
didn't
nobodies.
erase
No,
it.
Becky did, because I sent
No,
her
I
messages.
erased when the two of them were bitching
Oh,
back and
yeah,
forth.
Yeah, because he was just downgrading everybody, he was
Ladies,
nasty.
in defense of all of this and everything that was on Facebook, we consulted our team of lawyers. They looked at it and said, this
Right,
cannot
that's
go
what she said.
forward, you have to shut it down. Let me tell you, we had Holiday Inn already booked, open for anybody who wished. We were criticized on the food that we offered, and the reason for that. Yes,
Yeah,
we
they were, they
Where was
were.
the food
Hey,
even
just
listed?
quiet
No, they
for a
were,
sec.
they were.
Quiet. The reasoning, we understood people were coming in from long distances, and I travel frequently, and I'll tell you something, when you come in from a long distance, it's great when someone has a coffee and a piece of breakfast or lunch or something to relax with, to socialize with. And that was the whole thing, to network with each other. When do groomers ever really get together on something of this magnitude? That was the reason for that. I was willing to put the money out for everybody.
Right.
But when we put this forward to the lawyers and they said, absolutely not. If anything had happened, we would have been liable. End of story. Shut it down. And unfortunately, I had to. We had supporters. We had people giving products for everybody at that thing.
And when
I don't
We
think
had
anybody
great
cared about
support
that.
on it. I
Nobody-
don't
Yeah.
care
I
what
know,
you
but they
did,
just
but
want
that's what it was
information.
about.
That's what
We
they want.
wanted everyone
Yeah,
to
they
be
wanted to know who the
comfortable
sponsors were
and make it a
Yeah,
good
that's
experience.
what's going on.
And
But
it
they
was
said they wanted
giving
to know
the
so they could
groomers
support
a
them.
level
That's what I
that
did.
we should get used to.
Some did,
Well,
some
that's
did.
bad, that's
Okay.
bad.
And that's it,
Well, that's their
anyway,
opinion.
we were then advised to do this type of scenario, and unfortunately, it's not as comfortable as it could have been.
Yeah, it is.
But these have been great, successful, very informative little groups that we've done, and it has put everybody at ease. Anyway, she has to continue on to carry on through what we're doing.
It would be good though, I think, if like
But what
somehow it
happened
could
about
be
it not
posted, that
being
people could
posted?
read
That was
it.
the original
Yeah.
question.
They told us, the lawyer said, at this point, we're just taking it off, nobody gets to see it.
But then why are we
Why,
doing this?
why then?
Because we're still informing you about it, we're still talking to you.
But
We're not
it's
shutting
really
down.
hard.
Too, did it
And
not?
it was Lesley and I.
But it
that-
changed too, didn't the act too?
Yeah, we rewrote it again.
Yeah,
we
there was some
registered it,
changes
everything.
apparently.
Yeah, because of the comments that were.
Rewritten
A few
again
times,
and again
yes.
and again. When it goes to assembly, it will be rewritten again.
That's right.
All we are doing is giving them an outline of what we believe. 90% of the 56 pages basically is how do we administer. If somebody registers and we decline, how do you deal with it? How do you take somebody who wants to register as an intern? What's the process? What happens if they decline? What happens, you've declined them, how do they repel back? And it's like on and on and on about just like pages of administration. And please, pick up any act, and you'll find 90% of it is all about administration. That you can't change. Must the individual be talked about in that act? If they don't get accepted, there has to be an appeal board for that individual to say, you didn't register me, now what do I do? What's the appeal process? How do I get back into your good graces? Or you've just chastised me, you brought me up, you disciplined me. What's my appeal process? It's government, whether you like it or not. Appeals are like forever. But just look at the Vet Act. If you haven't read the Vet Act and you're in the animal trade, I suggest you do. Because you should know about it. Why do we want this for ourselves? Because I want to pass my business on to my family. I want to be able to take my business, put an ad in the paper, and have lots of people sign up to find out what my business is all about and how they buy it. In this business area that we're into today, it's all very quiet, hush-hush. Somebody coming in, a newcomer coming into the country, why do they want to buy a pet store business? Why do they want to buy a retail business? Why? There's no act for them to look at. There's no solid association that they can go to. How many members does ODGA have?
200.
200 or so?
200? When's the last time they put out a profit and loss statement? You know? So these are the things that people, when they're looking for a business, want to find out about it. They want to come to you and they want to see your records. But more importantly, that new person, this new egg coming up, right now wants to join an industry that is a profession, that we're not charmaids anymore. How many of your days are spent covered in hair? Most of them. Yeah, it's a dirty trade, I get it. But I don't want to be known as the charmaid for the doggies, thank you very much. Because I get
My clients
involved
have never referred
in
to me as
lots
that.
of your lives, in knowing about your dogs, the health, the welfare, the breeding, what's going
But how
on with
is
this
this-
toenail, this, that, and the other.
How is this gonna ensure that that?
I can't give you any promises that it will ensure you of anything, other
But what's the
than
benefit of this? Why would I want this?
because I can stand up and call myself a professional and I have an act. And that act rules my business. And that act rules my life as a pet groomer. That's all I can tell you.
And
End
keeping
of
the
story.
government out of it.
Exactly.
Well, not only that,
No, yeah,
that
the government
act
said.
allows us a voice and direction in our own businesses. If we don't have that, we have nothing. Let me tell you one thing. Just this week, we had notice from someone within, and it's a very high official in Ontario, Service Ontario, that says, if you fall under the trades, they will eventually put you under Service Ontario. Everything, the future with the government right now, what is happening is the future for Service Ontario will become a great big umbrella for all licensings across the board, including us. That means hunting, fishing, trucking, auto, insurances, they do HST right now as well, everything. Even us goes under Service Ontario. If you think you can even make a complaint and be heard, I got news for you. It'll be 2 years before they even look at your complaint. Or if you think you're going to have a voice in your trade under that, you will be buried under the heat that that umbrella is going to have. There's no future. Literally no future under the trades. That's no word of life.
Will this act
Can
also?
we have this gentleman come up?
Just a quick question, and I know I arrived late. Could you just hit on the high points, the financial ones? Cost to shops, cost to
Yes.
registration to
We
the groomers?
we see a registration fee to the business. The owner of the business has to register, and the individual pet groomer must register. We're assuming the fees for the pet groomer will be similar to what the hairdressers are paying now.
I have no idea what that is.
Probably in the area of around $300 every 3 years,
Okay.
maybe 400. We are now, because you have to put a budget together before you can identify what the fees are going to be.
Of course.
We're working with associations now that handle private acts, like the veterinarians, like the interior designers, and there's a whole slew of people out there that we can share space, time, money with. So we'll bring it down as close as we can, but as it stands now, there'll be a fee to license the pet groomer, and there'll be a fee to register your business.
And the shop will have to be inspected? I better start cleaning.
I would say, well, trust me on that, you probably don't have to do too much.
Okay.
There'll be a fire inspection, and again, that's just to ensure the safety of your employees and the animals in your care, but Ontario will consider it more for the safety of the human, not the dogs. The health inspection will come through, and again, it's for sanitary reasons for your employees and yourself, not so much for the dogs. Because if you clean for yourself, then it'll be clean for the dogs primarily.
How much for the shops? Any ideas?
Probably around $250.
Okay. A year, every 2 years, every 5 years?
At this point in time, I would say probably every year for the business.
Okay.
And I would say every 3 years for your fire inspection, and probably every 3 years for your health inspection.
Will we get a decklin for the door or something?
Oh, I'm certain they'll design all kinds of good
Okay.
things.
All right.
Yeah, and it's mostly just to bring everybody to a certain standard. I don't care whether you use a stainless steel bathtub, and neither does the pet, neither does the client. I don't care if your floors are linoleum, or if they're hardwood, or they're just plain painted concrete. That's not the issue.
Okay.
What's the part about the equipment then, the CSA and all that?
Well, the equipment, because do you know that most of our equipment that we use is not CSA approved?
Yes.
Especially dryers.
So if we get a tradesperson in there, and we fall under the trades, I can guarantee you that the clipper vac system is gone, and so are those canine dryers, because they're not CSA approved. However, if we have our own act, we can put in our act that this is acceptable equipment for our trade. And therefore, we don't suffer the same problem. Because right now, if somebody told me,
So we would be allowed to use
So we
equipment
would,
that's not
you would
CSA?
you would have
yes.
more
because
power,
why-
it would be
why are
more
we-
powerful than the government?
Yeah, why won't the pet stores sell it now then, or the?
Because we're doing our own safety inspections rather than the
right.
government coming in and doing our safety inspections. Because Friends won't even carry the K93 with the 2 dryers now, they can't get them in.
No.
No,
So-
and you know why? Ren's had a huge amount